All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, I can no longer see your, well, here we go. I can see your videos now. Um, all right, so this is part two. So I know it's been a while since we did part one of supporting your thyroid and adrenals. Today, we're really going to focus on the adrenal side of things. It goes hand in hand with the thyroid support. All of the information is coming from the same author. And you'll see there's a lot of overlap from the first seminar as well. So this one should hopefully be a little bit shorter since we're just focusing on this one aspect of it. But I do want to give you guys some time to share your experiences really quickly, because I know that we all came in here with, similar but different goals. We've had similar but different journeys. So I'd love to hear a little bit from each of you if you're willing to share what your experience has been like so far. What diet and lifestyle changes have you made? What differences have you noticed in your health or energy or your sleep or things like that? Is anybody willing to share?
I mean, I think for me that sleep will be better because now I won't be quite as anxious during the school year. But I think the meditations made a difference. And I just noticed this morning, I woke up and it was, I don't know, 20 after 2, and I got back in bed and I took some deep breaths and so I think even though I fall asleep at night during the whole sleep meditation thing, I fall asleep way before because I never have trouble falling asleep. I think that part has been really helpful. I think for me, the other thing is just being more aware of what I'm eating. Doesn't necessarily mean I always make the best choices. I want to be really clear because that's not true. But it's kind of like, all right, this is probably not the best choice, and I'll have to come up with a plan moving forward, but I'm eating this damn pizza and I know it has both gluten and dairy in it, and that's all there is. But I think I'm really kind of trying to be thoughtful and pay attention, and so I'm eating significantly less gluten and significantly less dairy, and both of those things. I don't know if they've made a physical difference. It'll be interesting to see what I'm hoping my blood work comes back and it looks a little bit better because it was a train wreck. So I think that's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Rose. And I know you started this process that I'm going to mention here in a minute, kind of before you started working with us with the Strong Her program, but you've also been putting up a lot of boundaries at work, which is new for you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I took a voluntary retirement program at Widener. I'm an associate dean at Widener, and although I've extended past when the actual ending date happens, the thing I've been really cognizant about is being able to say no to things, focusing on just my work in the School of Nursing with my undergraduate program. I was the person who would volunteer for everything. Like, I know everybody across campus, because if there was a project, I was raising my hand or somebody was saying, can you do this? And I would be yes. And then I would kick myself because I said yes. So I've really been focusing on those things that I can control and that I'm responsible for, and saying to people, I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. Now it helps because I say, I got to get all this other stuff done. I'm leaving. Like I have a lot of work to do. The other thing I've been doing is listening to this book called Soundtracks by John Acuff. And I have the book and I had a hard time finding time to read it, but I've been listening to it in the car, and it's that same thing. How do you get these negative ideas out of your head? And how do you begin to be positive? And so I had this negative mantra was that, of course, I have to say yes. People will think I'm lazy, or I'm, not a team player, or I don't want to help the university, or whatever those things are. And now it's kind of like, no, back up. That's not, I don't have to say that anymore. So that's also been really helpful, playing in my head of, I'm not as worried about what other people think. If I have a reason to say no. Do I say no to my boss? No. Just so you know. But she doesn't ask me anything crazy, so it's all good.
Yeah. And you've been intentional about like the time that you spend on emails when you're on vacation
Yeah.
and all of those little, they seem like little things, but they actually make a really big difference. So that's a huge area of growth that I've seen with you over the last 6 months. So I really just wanted to acknowledge that, because that is a huge piece of what we're going to be talking about later with these 4 R's of healing your adrenals. So
I hope my cortisol levels are lower. That's the goal.
yeah. Awesome. Chris, Tina, do either of you mind sharing?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same as Rose as far as nutrition goes. Megan, you know, my struggles with nutrition because I have a big family. So, but I mean, I've changed my eating habits and my diet. I consider drastically from what I was before I started the program. And it's actually shown up to improve everybody in the house because, you know, we're not running a restaurant here. Nobody gets different meals. So even my kids have lost some weight during this process. But I still struggle. We still have pizza every now and then. Gluten-free is pretty easy for me. Dairy, not so much. I love cheese. I love cottage cheese, yogurt. I love that's kind of hard for me to give up.
Me too, Chris. Me
I-
too. Because the choices of dairy-free alternatives are terrible.
Yeah, nasty, aren't they? They're just nasty.
I agree. And Missy knows how I feel about that.
Yeah. So there are certain things that I'm willing to give up, and there are other things I'm struggling with that I'm just not. I'm not there yet. But sleep has been getting better. I invested in an Aura ring, which is amazing. It tells me so much stuff. So my heart rate, sleep every day. My sleep has been getting better. Tells me what time I should be going to bed. It's amazing that it monitors all this stuff and you can get daily reports. But my sleep has been getting better. I still get up once a night, but I usually go back to sleep right away. So you know, I wish I could do the meditation like Rose does. I just can't get into it. But overall, since I started this program, I think I've done a lot better. I feel a lot better. I can do a lot more things. And, you know, it was actually easier than I thought it was going to be.
That's interesting. In what ways was it easy? Because we talk a lot about, you know, things that we're struggling with. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, just, you know, Missy knows how much I hated working out, but it's become such a routine now that if I miss it during the week, believe me, everybody in my house knows that I've missed a workout session. But sometimes I have to cancel just because stuff pops up and I'm just not going to make it. But everybody knows it. So, and I think with the support of the gym and the trainers at the gym, that's what makes it easy. Like I feel I'm being held accountable because my husband's sitting here with me listening to this. If I want ice cream, he's not going to tell me not to eat ice cream. Right. You know what I mean? He's just going to let me do what I want to do. So I feel like being held accountable makes it easier for me to get to the gym, to make better choices when I'm taking pictures of my food and posting it for you guys to look at. It makes it a lot easier to make the right choices. Not that I always do, but and I do put the stuff on there that isn't necessarily what I should be eating. And just having a group to talk to and knowing that and getting information and being educated is extremely helpful and makes it easier.
Yeah, And I know with you, Chris, I don't think Missy would mind me saying this. And I don't know if she shared this with you or not, but when you first came to the gym for that very first session, she thought, I'm never going to see this lady again.
Oh yeah.
And
So
now here we are, you know,
I
you
know.
get the stitches and you're like, they told me I'm not allowed to work out, but please don't tell me I can't come into the gym. What can we do?
Yeah. I believe me, if I hadn't have signed up that first day I came to try out, I probably wouldn't have come back. And I knew that. So, but I liked it. And I liked that the gym wasn't packed full with people. I liked that people were paying attention to what I was doing and making sure I was doing it right. Missy, believe it or not, was on my phone call with her. She was very personable and very, she just made me feel comfortable. So, you know, it was easy. And I got into a routine, and now I can't do without it. Even when we go away, Megan, I work out in the hotel room.
Yeah.
Or I make the kids and I take the steps up and down to our rooms, and, you know, they grumble and groan, but guess what? I can do 5 flights of stairs now without feeling like I'm going to pass out. So, you know.
That's amazing. And did you, you know, even 6 months ago, did you even think you'd be saying these things?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I have tried so many different things over the years, and joined other gyms, and you know, and I you get to a point where, first of all, I think everybody wants to see results immediately. And that's what I was talking to Missy about last week. And when you don't see results immediately, you kind of like give up.
Mm-hmm.
But being a member of the gym and the community that you guys have made makes me realize things take time.
Yeah.
You know, and I think everybody in the gym is very supportive of each other, not just the trainers, the other members. We're very supportive of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great community.
Yeah. I love that. And, you know, as far as the nutrition is concerned, no one's perfect, right? And sometimes we can get really focused on all the things that we're doing that are quote unquote wrong, or bad for us or whatever. But you have become a lot more mindful, and it's, you know, we can't take everything away that we love, right? Because then you're just going to be miserable. So
right.
Even just cutting back on some of these things really do make a difference. And so that's kind of where the growth happens, is when you continue to make good choices, even among some of those quote unquote like bad choices, you know, understanding that it's all gonna equal out in the end, and you do have to kind of enjoy your time while you're here anyway, right? So
yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Tina, no pressure, but is there anything that you wanted to add?
No, but I'm along the same lines of as Chris and Rose. So I only like responded to Missy's text like once a day to get me in there. Like it wasn't something I was going to do. But I'm amazed at how without medication, my body and my blood work has changed. You know, I sat through, you know, Megan and her mom's presentation, and, you know, I'm all for it, you know, but didn't think it would happen for me or could happen for me. But like my blood work came in recently so much better. My triglycerides were through the roof, and in January. And from September to January, they went up like 200 and some points. It was ridiculous. So they're actually down 155 points just from like working out and eating better and all that. So it's you know, fruit and vegetables and working out, it works. So
Yeah. Well, and Tina, I've seen growth in you too. Like even just the way you talk about yourself when you're in the gym, telling stories like, "Oh, I broke something at home. I told my husband I'm too strong. My guns are
I
too
did.
big."
I did. I broke the sink, and I told him it was because I was working out and pumping weights, and he's like told me to go away. So yes.
So that just shows, you know, you're I don't know if you're feeling this, but I see in you a new confidence,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely. And it's nice, like and like Chris said, you're not going to see the results right away, which is very frustrating. But the clothes are fitting better. I pulled out a pair of pants I haven't worn in years, and I was like, well, let me try these on because they were sitting there, and yeah, they fit, and off I went. So it was good. Like I don't need to buy a whole new wardrobe just because it's summer. Actually, I may, because some of the pants shorts may be too big, but that's a good thing. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
That's awesome. I love that. And so something that you've all kind of mentioned is that these results, and when we say results, I'm assuming we mean weight loss, it takes time, right? And so sticking with that does tend to be where a lot of people struggle, because if you're putting in all of this effort and it feels really hard and the scale either doesn't do anything or God forbid it goes up, then it's like, well, why am I going to cut out the dairy? Why am I going to cut out my wine? Why am I going to wake up and come into the gym? Why am I going to do all of these things that feel so hard if it's going to be the same anyway? But if you can kind of commit and push through that, you notice you start to feel better. I know some of us have experienced, our hair growing back. Some of us are even standing up taller. Like all of those types of things are signs that our body is doing what we want it to do. It's repairing, and that weight loss is going to come. It does just take time, especially if we want to do it the right way, which I know you guys have heard this a million times, but we want to protect and preserve as much muscle as we can and prioritize the fat loss, right? Like we don't want you guys dropping weight just for the sake of hitting a number on the scale. We really want to make sure that we're prioritizing your health for the long run. And so that's where a lot of this information comes in as well. Again, I know a lot of you have looked her up after the last session, but just a reminder, a lot of this content does come from Dr. Isabella Wentz and her books, the Adrenal Transformation Protocol and the Hashimoto's Protocol. Okay, so just a quick recap of part one. Your body is not broken, right? A lot of the symptoms and the way that we're feeling are just kind of reflecting the way that we live our lives. We're overworked, we're overstressed, we're overtired, and we've been taught that we just need to kind of keep pushing through. And that's really, that's going to lead to you feeling tired, feeling, those body aches, feeling all of those things that are not super desirable. We already talked about this kind of in detail, but healing does take time, right? And then Tina, you kind of alluded to this, but we are very lucky to live in a country where we have really great healthcare. But sometimes we've kind of been trained to run to the doctor for every little thing, and we want them to give us something to fix it, right? And we don't have a lot of support to kind of look at ourselves holistically and take a root cause approach, which is what we're trying to do here, right? So last time when we met, we talked about what that root cause approach looks like in terms of adrenal and thyroid, which is where a lot of us were noticing, undesirable results in our labs. So we talked about liver support, so supporting your detox processes, really building yourself up in that area, adrenal support, and gut health support, so supporting your microbiome. Today, we are going to talk more about that adrenal support piece, what that looks like, and those 4 R's of healing. And then this is just a quick reminder of the different types of chronic stress, because sometimes I talk to women and they're like, I'm not a stressed out person. They're thinking more of that psychological stress, but we also have inflammation, which is, if we're injured or if we're having too many of these inflammatory foods. So back to our conversation before, it's not that we necessarily, all of us, have to cut out all gluten, all dairy, all alcohol, etc. But noticing the kind of toll that it takes on our body and just kind of reducing it so we're not overburdening our system with these inflammatory foods. Not getting enough sleep leads to circadian rhythm imbalances. A couple of you mentioned, getting better sleep, falling asleep easy, only waking up once a night, things like that. We really do need 7 to 9 hours of sleep, even as adults, and many of us aren't getting that. We also talked about nutritional imbalances, right? So not getting enough protein, not getting enough micronutrients, so those fruits, vegetables, seeds, things like that. All of that and regular psychological stress, right? Like being late to work, kids drama, bosses, all of that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stress that we normally think about when we think about stress. But all of these different things really can add up on top of each other. One can lead to another. Sometimes if we're under physiological stress, then we lean on foods that aren't necessarily nutritionally dense. Next thing you know, we're, up late at night scrolling on our phones instead of going to sleep. And it kind of creates this pattern that it gets hard to kind of dig ourselves out of. And again, we already talked about this, but healing truly does take time. So as a reminder, depending on where you fell on the adrenal scale, healing can take anywhere, like optimal healing, to get from where you were to really what is optimal can take all the way up to 2 years. And so I'm really glad to hear that a lot of you are feeling better. Some of you might have already achieved that optimal space. But if when you get your labs back, you see that there are still some like patterns that are not optimal, I don't want you to be too hard on yourself, because when I say this takes time, it truly does take a lot of time. So don't get discouraged, just keep doing what you're doing and keep adding to what you're doing, right? As the things that you're working on right now begin to feel a little bit easier, then start to add on, what else can I do? What else can I do, right? Don't try and do everything overnight, because healing doesn't happen overnight anyway. So just continue to build on the good habits that you've kind of already started. All right, so what are the 4 R's of healing? This is really where I kind of geek out. So I'm going to try not to ramble on for too long about each of these things. But when we talk about replenish, we're talking about giving back to our body, right? Nutrient density, lowering inflammation, and really making sure that our blood sugar is balanced throughout the day. Re-energize is making sure that we are hydrated properly, we're supporting our mitochondria, and we're really supporting that circadian rhythm, that natural rhythm of sleep and wake cycles that our body wants to follow. Revitalize, so positive thought patterns, like Rose was saying with that book by John Acuff, that is a tremendous resource that I highly recommend to anybody that feels like they have maybe negative thought patterns, or you're someone who tells yourself a lot of stories about yourself or about situations. The book is called Soundtracks. Again, if that's something that you're interested in, that was a really great resource that Rose recommended. But also things like pleasurable activities, doing things that are creative, all of that can revitalize your spirit and can really help your healing. And then rebuilding resilience, right? So I'm talking to a group of women that have families, that have jobs, that have all of these things going on. And so it's impossible and would be not helpful for me to say, just go ahead and eliminate your stress, right? But we do want to focus on being able to build resilience to the stress that is in our life. So while there are things that we do want to focus on, removing ourselves from certain, maybe situations or people, things like that. At the end of the day, we really want to focus on building our resilience to stress, because stress is a part of human life. We're always going to experience it. And so building up that threshold so that we can tolerate it a little bit better and bounce back a little bit better is going to be really helpful. So we're going to dive into each of these in a little bit more detail. So when we talk about nutrient density, we want to make sure that you're getting plenty of those macro and micronutrients. So we don't want you to be afraid of carbs and fats, right? We want to make sure that we're having plenty of those in our diet, but we also want to make sure that we're getting plenty of protein and plenty of micronutrients. So things like, fruits, vegetables, fermented foods, things like that, that really support that gut health. You have, vitamin and mineral diversity throughout your day, things like that. Lowered inflammation. So again, removing some of those reactive foods maybe if not totally, but just again, removing them as maybe daily habits, or if you were having them like several times throughout your day, maybe now you only have them at, one meal, or, a couple times a week versus every single day, things like that. So figuring out ways to remove some of those more reactive foods and add in some of those more supportive foods, like again, supporting your gut diversity and your microbiome. I know that this has been a bigger challenge for a lot of us because of, again, we're also preparing meals for our families, or it's tradition to eat a certain way, or whatever it is. So again, I don't want you to get too caught up on, oh, I'm not doing a good enough job in this area. Just continue to focus on what you can add in, and eventually you'll crowd out some of those other things that we don't want to be having too much of. Because again, depending on who you are and what you're dealing with, some of us truly do need to eliminate these things entirely for, forever. But some of us really just need to restrict them a little bit more than we have been, so that we're not overburdening our system. And so figuring out where you fall on that spectrum is kind of an experiment as well. And then lastly, balanced blood sugar. So when we think about blood sugar, we tend to think about, diabetics have to worry about their blood sugar, but really this is something that everybody really needs to worry about. We want to make sure that we have good balanced blood sugar throughout our day, every day. Blood sugar is going to spike as a normal response to food. So I don't want you to get like freaked out about that. But there are some habits that we do that contribute to wacky blood sugar, like too much fasting, so going too long between meals, skipping breakfast, not eating on a regular schedule, right? So the more we can control that, the better off we'll be, and the more energy we'll feel, the more sustained energy we'll feel throughout the day, right? So if we have balanced blood sugar, then we might not be feeling that 3 p.m. crash that we may be used to feel. We might not get that hangry feeling, or if you're like me, it's time to cook dinner, but you're, elbow deep in the goldfish in the pantry because it's been 6 hours since you've had something to eat. So those are all signs that you maybe need to pay better attention to your blood sugar and how you're supporting that. So again, same type of thing, always making sure that you're having a protein and a protein and a fat with your carbs as often as you can. Adding in fruits, vegetables, all that good stuff. And then just trying to limit prepackaged foods. Again, I know that it's a part of life. Sometimes we rely on those convenience things. I'm not saying I don't eat any packaged foods, but try to avoid as much of them as possible, and see what you can replace with whole foods instead. Re-energize safety signals. So again, hydration. The general recommendation is that we're drinking half our body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 200 pounds, for easy math, you're going to want to make sure that you're drinking at least 100 ounces of water. If I know Missy, she's going to recommend even more than that. But also consider adding electrolytes to your drinks or your water. Things like sodium chloride, magnesium, potassium. You can get those vitamins through foods. You can get them through a supplement. I always add like a little pinch of Himalayan sea salt to my water, just for a little bit of hydration. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be an expensive supplement. Really just making sure you're doing what you can. Especially if you do sweat a lot. We're coming up on the summer months, right? So if you are someone who sweats a lot, you're going to want to make sure that you're replenishing even more. Particularly, again, if you're like me, I'm a very salty sweater. You'll know that that's true because if after you sweat and everything's dried off, you'll feel like salt on your skin. If that's the case for you, especially, you're going to want to make sure that you're adding in some of these electrolytes to kind of replenish yourself.
Megan, can I just ask a question here? Because, there are so many products like, that people will use usually post drinking binges, but like that liquid IV kind of stuff, that powder stuff. Is there something that I mean, I try to work hard to drink a lot of water, but it is just plain water. Are there those kinds of things, or does Missy have something that's at the gym that you recommend putting in your water? As opposed to, I don't want to go out and buy potassium powder and magnesium powder and, like, no offense, but I just don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And a really great question. So, personally for me, like I said, I'll just put a pinch of salt in the water that I do drink. Missy has had liquid IV in the gym in the past. I'm not sure if that's specifically something that she does recommend or not. I'm not familiar enough with the ingredients to say one way or the other. But yeah, and like I said, you can also get these through fruits and vegetables too. So it doesn't have to be something that you add into your water. Just making sure that you're getting something, right? Bless you. But I can ask Missy if she has something that she does recommend for sure. Okay, and then mitochondrial support. So mitochondria, if you remember back, is the powerhouse of the cell. And so we want to support good, healthy, vibrant mitochondria of our cellular structures. So they need optimal circumstances to do their best work. So we're going to keep this very, very simple because this could be a totally separate topic, but we want to make sure that we're eating plenty of fats. So avocados, coconut oils, olive oils, things like that. B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium. Again, you can get all of these through food in your diet and nutrition. It doesn't necessarily have to be some sort of supplement, especially not an expensive supplement. And then adaptogens. I know a lot of you are taking, I think it's TrueAdapt or TrueAdapt Plus. That is an adaptogenic supplement, so that would count. That would count towards this. And then lastly, circadian rhythm reset. So again, this time of year, it's a lot easier to do this naturally because the sun is up early in the morning and it stays up until kind of later in the evening. But your body wants to rise and go to bed with the sun. And so again, this time of year, it's way easier than like January or February when the sun doesn't come out until like 7 o'clock in the morning and then it's down by 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But doing our best to get as much natural sunlight in our eyeballs as possible. So that means, like, for example, Chris, today, if you were out at the soccer field, if the sun was out, try not to have your sunglasses on the whole entire time, right? Like, let that natural light into your eyes. Try to get outside in the morning. So if you have an animal, this is easier for you to, if you go out, if you let them outside when you wake up, spend a couple minutes outside with them instead of just letting them out and going back inside and going about your morning. Same thing in the evening. So if you take an evening walk as the sun sets, that is letting your body know it's time to start shutting down and going to bed now. So same kind of thing. I know that this is kind of a funny thing, but I coach people all the time. They're like, I have trouble sleeping. And I'm like, well, what does your routine kind of look like? And it looks like this. They clean up from dinner, they watch some TV, then they go around and turn off all the lights as they head to bed. So if we can just turn off our lights as we want to start shutting down, like an hour or two before we actually want to go to bed, let yourself be in darkness. Again, you're letting your body know it's time to shut down, it's time to start going to bed. It makes that whole wind down process a little bit easier for you. All right, revitalize. This is kind of a fun one because it kind of forces you to do things that are just for you instead of always for your job or your family or other people that are demanding your time and attention, right? So again, the positive thought patterns. So again, that book by John Acuff is really helpful here, but a large part of healing is really having a positive mindset. As humans, it's kind of in our biology to look for the threat. So it's easy for us to see things that aren't working well or that are just, it's easier to focus on the negative, right? So we kind of have to train ourselves to find things that are positive to focus on because what you are thinking about and paying attention to, you'll start to see more of. So it'll become easier over time to focus on the positive. So thought patterns that are, oh, go ahead.
Oh, it's funny you say that because like I've noticed that a lot lately with other people, even talking about like fitness, like some of the things they'll talk about. And even with my mom, so my mom's trying to lose weight. She's like, oh, I can't have fat and carbs. And I'm like, no, that's not the point. Like, like you said, don't take things away that you, I don't want to say but like have a, more positive mind thought or mindset. And I've definitely noticed that in other people lately. And I'm kind of like, okay, no. So kind of like moving that away, like out of my space, because I can deal with some people's negativity to a point, but I have my own stuff going on. I can't hold on to yours too. So, and that's different. That was not me 6 months ago. It was, I was holding everybody's in, and I'm not doing that now.
Yeah. And when you started to realize that, Tina, like, oh, I'm noticing how I feel when I leave this person, I'm feeling very drained. Have your relationships shifted?
Yes. And it's funny, well, not funny, but yeah. So like some of my friendships have kind of like, I don't know, I don't touch base as often because I feel like I'm always the one reaching out. And then every time I reach out, they're always, oh, this is bad and that's bad. And, the world's crappy. I can't deal with that.
Yeah.
So I don't reach out as much. So we'll see. I'm supposed to be having dinner with a friend of mine this week or next week. We'll see how that goes because she's one of the ones who's always negative about everything. So I just kind of take it for an hour and then move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this can be really tough, right? Because as you've already noticed, you're already kind of backing away from people. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't love these people anymore or that you don't want to be friends with them. But just noticing how it impacts you and your energy and how you feel about, yourself or the world after you leave this person. That can be a really difficult shift for people to make. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. But to a certain point, like you can rub off on people too, right? Like your energy is also contagious as much as their negative energy is contagious. Your positive energy is also contagious. So, if it's someone like your mom, maybe you have a higher tolerance for her negativity than someone who is just more of a casual friend. You can kind of cut those ties and kind of just let those people go. Again, it doesn't mean that you don't love them. It doesn't mean that you, feel any type of way about them. It's just protecting your own space, protecting your own energy so that you can be better for yourself and better for, the people that live inside your house who are really your priority at the end of the day.
Definitely. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when someone is in that pattern of like, this sucks, that sucks, they are contributing to a fight or flight response in themselves. And if you're in that energy, it's also contributing to your own fight or flight response. And really, we want to spend more time in the rest and digest space than the fight or flight response. And so this is not only for, other people that you spend time with, but also for yourself. If you start to notice yourself going down a rabbit hole of, this isn't working and that's not working and this person always is, this way, and this work project, it's never going to end and it's always going to suck, and all of these things, like all of these thought processes and patterns contribute to that fight or flight kind of response, which can trigger, shallow breathing, like all of that kind of stuff. And again, back to our original conversation, then we want to kind of eat our feelings. So we're not necessarily worried about getting in our Brussels sprouts that day. So again, this all kind of, it seems separate, but it all does kind of loop around back to each other. And then also pleasurable activities, right? So how often do you do something that's just for you, that is something fun? This is something that a lot of women struggle with, but because we're busy with work, with life, with taking care of other people. But finding a hobby or something that you do just for fun, or maybe not even fun, but something that you do just for yourself, like going for a walk in the woods or on the beach, with or without headphones. Without headphones this time of year is really nice because you can hear the birds chirping. Again, if you drive down to the beach, it's not that far. You can hear the waves, all that kind of stuff is really good for you. And then being creative. So finding time to create something, whether that is in a new recipe or, journaling, or, if you paint or color, like they have those adult coloring books now. This is something my daughter and I do kind of not super routinely, but every once in a while, I'll sit down and I'll color with her. She's 13. So we just get different coloring books than we did when she was, 4 or 5, and we had just regular coloring books. But that's a creative outlet for both of us. And then we're talking to each other instead of sitting down and watching a movie. So this doesn't have to be, all things that you do completely on your own. See how you can bring in other people that you love and care about, to kind of strengthen those bonds and those relationships as well. All right, and then the last one is rebuild resilience. So movement that feels good. So this doesn't mean, if you hate doing planks, don't come to the gym on Wednesday. This more means, if you are someone who does feel like anxious and stressed, a super cardio intensive workout might be good for you. But if you notice after a DECA or after a run or something more cardio intensive, you feel very drained and very depleted and like you need to go to sleep, then maybe you need to back it down a little bit, right? And so when I say movement that feels good to you, that's what I'm talking about. Movement that feeds your energy rather than movement that depletes it. Again, in terms of done, a lot of people will say like, oh, I hate upper body, so I don't come in on Wednesdays. And it's like, well, if you hate it, it's probably because it's not a strength of yours, which probably means you need to spend time doing it, right? So you kind of have to balance that a little bit, but I do want you to pay attention to how you feel when you leave the workout. Do you feel better, refreshed, more energized, or do you feel depleted, like you need a nap and like you're kind of like on the couch for the rest of the day? And this can come and go, right? You can have, most weeks you feel good, you feel energized, you feel refreshed. Then all of a sudden this week you're like, holy shit, that really took it out of me. That could be a sign that you need a break. Maybe you're coming down with, an illness or something. So really pay attention to that and start to listen to your body. Slowing your breath. So we talked a little bit about meditation. It is not for everyone, even though I am a fan, but even just taking just a couple seconds to just, right, between work meetings or, right before your kids walk in the house from the school bus, just kind of taking a big, like one big deep breath can make a really big difference. If you can do it for a full minute, that makes an even bigger difference. So you don't have to do like a full 30-minute guided meditation thing. Just, 1 or 2 concentrated big deep breaths can really make a world of difference. And then creating healthy coping strategies. So again, we can't completely eliminate all of the stress from our life or all of the stressful people from our life, but we can notice how we're coping with those things, right? So an unhealthy coping strategy obviously would look like being aggressive or being passive aggressive, overeating, leaning on alcohol, overspending, withdrawing from people. All of those types of things are what we consider unhealthy coping mechanisms. Healthy coping mechanisms look more like having that difficult conversation, setting boundaries, praying, meditating, journaling, giving someone a hug, moving your body, right? So going for a walk instead of just like doom scrolling on your phone or, fuming at your desk, things like that. Letting go can be a really hard one because sometimes we feel like we have to control all of these things. Tina, you kind of alluded to this, just kind of separating yourself from people or spaces, just kind of letting go of the drama, letting them just kind of keep it to themselves and just kind of have it rather than, staying involved in it. Or, for me, I've gotten out of getting involved in those types of things, but I'm still hearing about it. I'm still kind of around it, right? So separating myself even more from that, setting that boundary. And then lastly, reclaiming your space. So Rose, we talked about you in the beginning, right? Saying no. Like no is a complete sentence. You don't have to go into, well, I would, but blah, 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 blah. You don't necessarily need to have a reason to not do something. You can just not do it. No, thank you. Being assertive, right? So be polite, but be firm about what you want and what you don't want. Protect your time. Again, no is a complete sentence. It's not like, I'll use my mom as an example. When she calls me and she says, hey, what are you doing? I hate that, because if I say, oh, I'm not doing anything, she's going to give me something to do. So I will always kind of like hesitate there, and I can feel it in my body, like, oh, why don't you just tell me what you want and I'll tell you if I want to do it or not, rather than asking me what I'm doing. So just those kind of things. Some of them, some of the examples I use are a little bit silly, but I hope it gets the point across that we do have more control than sometimes it feels like, especially if you're coming from a background of more of like a people-pleasing kind of tendency. All right, so again, as always, I know I threw a lot of information at you, so I just want you to sit for a second and just think about everything that we talked about today. Is there something that stuck out to you specifically? Was it one of the 4 R's or one of the subcategories? Was there one thing that stuck out to you that maybe you can go ahead and implement, maybe over the weekend or as you move into next week?
I think for me, the thing I liked about, and I often feel like I don't have time during the academic year for this, is that piece of being creative. And, I feel like there are moments, and again, even if I'm saying no to stuff, there's stuff that has to get done. I mean, I don't have a choice. And so I think that piece of, building in some opportunities to be creative. And I don't see myself as a creative person. My brain is a real analytical point A to point B person. So it's not a place that I'm comfortable at. I can make a really good stick figure. And I think, but when I hear that, I think I got to tap into that. And I'm not sure how I will tap into that, but I think that's that piece of thinking about how I might do that. The other thing, Chris, I wanted to tell you this, and I know about meditating. This app I use is called Insight Timer. And one of the sections they have are bedtime stories. So it'll start with a couple minutes of take some deep breaths, get yourself comfortable in bed, turn off the lights, and then it's a story. And then so I found that was helpful for me to begin doing this meditation, because I could breathe for 2 minutes, and then it just could be a story about somebody going to the cafe is one of them, and trying to decide what kind of coffee they wanted. And, I just found that to be helpful. I have no stake in this company. But it may be something to try for 7 days. I think there's like a 7-day or a 5-day trial before you have to commit. I'm just saying it was helpful to start there for me. Then let me sit here and listen for, and relax my toes and relax my whatever, that crazy body stuff, which, I don't like. So just saying, that's my 2 cents.
Great, thank you for that. What was the name of that again?
You're muted, Rose. You're muted, Rose.
I muted myself so wouldn't be disturbing. It's called Insight Timer, and you could set the time. So like it goes everywhere from, I mean, I usually pick like the 16 to 20-minute time frame. And so there's short stories in there, there are longer stories in there. But it also has like music and soundscapes for sleep. I use it for sleep. I mean, that's because that's what I'm obsessing over. I can't meditate during the day. I tried that at work once and I thought, this is freaking ridiculous. I'm not doing this. So I kind of gave up on that part. I just do
Right.
it at night. Insight Timer, it's just an app. I got it on the App Store.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah.
I think for me, it is like Tina said, like getting rid of negativity, or those around me that exude negativity. I have started to say no a lot more often to things, which 6-8 months ago it's not in my nature to do that. I'm a try to be a people pleaser and do just about everything, or try to do everything that people ask of me, which is not the healthiest. So I've been getting better at that, and I'm continue to do that because, like for instance, last May I actually quit my job, but I'm still working. I got talked into staying, but can make my own schedule and work from home and do as many hours as I want to do. And yesterday, my boss asked me if I could come in today to sign a contract with somebody, and I just said no, which is like a first for me because it is my boss. But I had too much stuff going on today. And normally what I would try to do is look at my schedule and see where I could squeeze it in, knowing that I was going to be running from point A to point B, losing my mind. And yesterday I just said no, and I felt good about it. And I didn't let it bother me. And I'm sitting in this meeting now. And when I get done this meeting, I have the rest of my day planned out and I'm not going to worry about anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big step for me.
That's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. It is huge. You know, my husband's even amazed that because I'll say to him, "Oh, I got to run into work real quick," and he'll go, what? So, yeah, but that's something I'm continuing to work on.
Awesome. Tina, again, no pressure, but if you want to share.
No, you're fine. I'm along the same lines. So like the reclaiming your space and just saying no, thank you. I felt like I always needed to provide somebody a reason. And my husband was like, no, you don't. Just tell them no. And I think it's different for men than women. I know that's generalizing, but you know, he's like, they don't need to know. It's none of their business. So
Yeah.
just know. So I'm definitely a people pleaser. And I've noticed since I'm in this new job, it's definitely different. But I'm definitely a people pleaser as well. I would do the same thing. I would be running myself crazy trying to do everything when I'm just not, you know, you've got to let things go and it's tough, but you just got to do it. And like you said, it's nobody's business. No, thank you. And I have the same thing, Meg. My mom actually texted me yesterday. She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm working. It's 2:30. I'm getting ready to pick up the kids and then I have dinner. And like, what do you think I do on a Friday?
Yeah.
Like, this is what I do. So, it's the same thing every Friday. Like I'm pretty routine, you know, so but I had the same, like I rolled my eyes and I was like, oh my God, what do you think I'm doing? Type of thing. So I get it. I get it.
It's funny. I'm the oldest, so when my siblings were in high school, if she would send somebody a text that said, "Where are you?" they would automatically assume, "Oh my God, I'm in trouble." So now if she's just curious and she wants to know like where you are, what you're up to, she'll send smiley face question mark so that we don't have to go into that fight or flight response of, "Oh my God, I'm in trouble. Something must be wrong." And she still does that, 10 years later. So maybe we need a new secret code for, "I'm just curious how you're doing, what you're up to," versus, "I have something I want you to do. So, what are you doing right now?" But yeah, awesome. I love all that. Thank you for sharing. And then before we go, I know we talked a lot about different resources, and I know some of you have already kind of dug into Dr. Isabella Wentz and her material. So if you're looking for something new, this book just came out. It's Good Energy by Dr. Casey Means. Again, a lot of the information kind of reinforces what we talk about here. It overlaps a little bit, but she talks about, supporting yourself, supporting your energy and your metabolism for overall good health outcomes. It just came out, I think, last week. I'm just diving into it now, but I've listened to a bunch of podcasts that she's been on, and it seems to be like a really great resource. So I thought I'd share it here in case any of you are interested. So I thought this would be shorter today, but it did take us the whole hour. I do apologize for that. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend.
Same to you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Megan.
You too. Bye-bye.
See you guys.